Okay, so this is the final part of Act 2, Scene 2. We took a little break there just so that you weren't continuing with a long video for more than about 20 minutes because I realise it's a long time to concentrate. We've just had the moment where Romeo waits at Juliet's balcony. He hears Juliet talking about her love for this person that she's just met with for the first time. Of course, that's Romeo, and that kind of inner turmoil that she has at that moment, realising that he's from the Montague family. They begin to profess their love for one another, and there's this sense of their love in a kind of cosmic and kind of fatalistic realm. There's lots of celestial imagery, there's lots of imagery to really idolise and worship Juliet, but there's also lots of imagery like the lightning, and imagery like too sudden, too rash, too unadvised, swear not by the moon, the inconstant moon, all of those ideas to do with the fear of Juliet that this love could be too fleeting and that it could be gone within a moment if they're too hasty and they're too immature about this. Juliet has temporarily left. She's gone back into her bedroom because she's heard the nurse calling for her, and at this point she then returns above to the balcony, almost to have one final word with Romeo before they finally part for the evening. Enter Juliet above. 3 words, dear Romeo, and good night indeed. If that thy bent of love be honourable, thy purpose marriage, send me word tomorrow, by one that I'll procure to come to thee, where and what time thou wilt perform the rite, and all my fortunes at thy foot I'll lay, and follow thee, my lord, throughout the world. So Juliet says to him, okay, I've got one final word for you. I've said that I didn't want this to be too rash and too fleeting and to be gone. So if your intentions are honourable and you want to marry me, send me word and I will be there. And so she gives Romeo this kind of ultimatum. The nurse calls within, Madam, I come anon, but if thou meanst not well, I do beseech thee, Madam, by and by I come, to cease thy strife and leave me to my grief. Tomorrow will I send, so thrive my soul, 1,000 times good night, she says to him, and that's the way that she leaves him when she exits. And this sense of hyperbole, 1,000 times good night, so it's the overwhelming power of love, their kind of infatuation with each other at this point. 1,000 times the worse to want thy light. Love goes towards love as schoolboys from their books, but love from love towards school with heavy looks. And he starts to retire, he starts to kind of admit that she has left, and he starts to walk away from the balcony. But Juliet enters again above. Hist, Romeo, hist! Oh, for a falconer's voice, to lure the tassel gentle back again. Bondage is hoarse, and I may not speak aloud, else would I tear the cave where echo lies, and make her airy tongue more hoarse than mine, with repetition of my Romeo's name. This is interesting here, because she's talking about kind of freedom of her voice and wanting to proclaim that she loves Romeo, and there's all this imagery to do with imprisonment. And so when she says bondage is hoarse, bondage meaning to be tied up, to be bound, to be imprisoned. Juliet is bound to her father. This reminds us of this idea of strict control of her father. She can't proclaim that she loves Romeo because she knows that she would be sinning against the wishes of her family. And this evokes notions of patriarchy. Patriarchy is the idea that kind of control is given to males, and kind of dominance and positions in the hierarchy are occupied by males. And obviously at the time that this was written in the Elizabethan era, we're talking here about Juliet as a young woman being married off for the benefit of her family, and that marriage, that good match being arranged by her father. She's almost a possession of her father at this stage. So this is an allusion to that. And later on, nearer to the end of the play, we really get that sense of the strict patriarchal control that her father wants to have and assert over her, and his reaction when she disobeys him and refuses to marry Paris because she's already married to Romeo. In fact, later on he calls her young baggage, and he calls her a disobedient wretch and things like that. So this is a kind of hint at the control that her father has over her, and how she's kind of bound by the strict rules of their society. She's almost imprisoned. It is my soul that calls upon my name. How silver sweet sound lovers' tongues by night, like softest music to attending ears. Romeo, my niece, that just means my dear, yes. What o'clock tomorrow shall I send to thee? By the hour of 9. I will not fail. 'Tis 20 year till then. I have forgot why I did call thee back. Let me stand here till thou remember it. I shall forget to have thee still stand there, remembering how I love thy company. So she kind of pretends that she's forgotten what she meant to say to him, just so she can stand and look at him for a little bit longer. And I'll still say, to have thee forget, forgetting any other home but this. 'Tis almost morning, I would have thee gone, and yet no farther than a wanton's bird, that it lets it hop a little from its hand, like a poor prisoner in his twisted gyves, and with a silken thread plucks it back again, so loving, jealous of his liberty. So he's talking about the idea of she would like to be almost like his pet, that she's only let off to leave him a short while and then always returns back to him, like this idea of being kind of symbiotically linked together, connected together. She never wants to be separated from him, so she uses that symbolism of being like a pet bird. This is interesting here that I've highlighted again. That imagery of imprisonment and control is continued here, like a poor prisoner in his twisted gyves. That just means, or gyves, that just means shackles or chains. So she's kind of brought up that idea of bondage to her father, that idea of being imprisoned and kind of controlled, but she's almost offering herself up. She would be happy to be shackled to Romeo. I were thy bird, so sweet, so would I, yet I should kill thee with much cherishing. Good night, parting is such sweet sorrow, that I shall say good night till it be morrow. Sleep dwell upon thine eyes, and peace in thy breast. Would I were sleep and peace, so sweet to rest? Hence will I to my ghostly sire's close cell, his help to crave, and my dear hap to tell. So when Juliet says this final line as she leaves, parting is such sweet sorrow, the oxymoron, sweet sorrow, remember two opposites right side by side, and the sibilant, such sweet sorrow, that reminds us of the tensions of their love and the idea of sin and conflict. Sibilant often reminds us of things that are kind of sinister, evil, harsh sounding, things to do with conflict. And the sweet sorrow reminds us of the conflict that lies at the basis of their love. They can't have this kind of idyllic, happy relationship that they would dream of, essentially. There will always be some conflict at the heart of it. And here Romeo has said here, hence I will to my ghostly sire's cell. Basically, he says here spiritual father. He's going to go to the priest, essentially, to the friar, and ask him to help in arranging a marriage to Juliet. And so that's his final line there. So the following scene now, we're going to join Romeo in Friar Laurence's cell, in Friar Laurence's dwelling, in his home, in the area that he lives and stays adjacent to his church, so that he can hopefully arrange a marriage to Juliet. Okay, we'll stop there.